Call to order the Bucksport Infrastructure and Property Committee meeting for Thursday, October 10th. Edward Rankin Jr.
Here.
Tracy Hare.
Here.
And Mark Eastman's here. Second item on the agenda is the fuel system at Town Garage.
We were notified several months ago that the vendor that is provides the fuel system at Town Garage for gas and diesel, and what that does is it's the system that shows who's purchasing, you know, which entity, which vehicle, which person, and it uses a cell-based system, and the whole program works through the cell contract that goes with the vendor. The vendor unexpectedly closed the doors and stopped doing anything, and the current contract for this system to work through the cell, whatever vendor that they have, expires in April of '25. And Simard, which is who we have used for years to do systems at the garage, doesn't know and can't get an answer as to whether come April that just stops or there's some process to keep it in place. But since the company is out of business, my guess is that when it stops, it's going to be done. And we rely on it. There's an override, but if you use that, then you don't get who and how many gallons and all that kind of stuff when you're doing the thing. So, and if anything breaks, we can't fix it because they're out of business. And so the question is, it's not will we have to do it. The answer is we will have to do it. But the question is when you want to, if you want to wait and do it closer to the expiration of the contract with the cell system that runs this, anticipating that nothing will happen, or do we want to do it ahead of time?
So what are the implications if something happens?
We would be writing numbers down on a piece of paper with names next to it on gallons. Somebody would have to monitor that system.
Would we still have to pay the old company?
No, the old company's gone. The old company's done. We paid the contract for the year before they went out of business.
And that's Simard?
No, it's
No,
the
no,
previous
no.
one.
I mean, I feel like it makes sense to...
Cardlock.
Cardlock Vending is the name of it.
Cardlock Vending. Simard did the installation for the Cardlock Vending system.
Okay.
But Simard is an installer of
Okay,
these
so
systems.
this is a sub through them, kind of?
I feel like it makes sense to do it now to prevent a problem rather than just in case we have a problem.
I would agree.
Well, it's not like we run an 8 to 4 business. The fact of the matter is that in the off season, our vehicles are, and even in the the winter, it's Public Works can be there at any time. But the truth is, public safety uses it 24/7, 7 days a week.
Yeah, and it's the same annual budget regardless of when we do it. So it doesn't, it's really
And
not...
school buses up there too.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say
and
this-
it doesn't really have a consequence on the budget because it would come out either way.
I do have to ask the question, though, that several years ago, like, we used to use, what was the Exxon at the time, before the new gas station was built there. And that's where we fueled everything up. But that was before we acquired the buses. So is that the big hinging point on
I'm in my 10th year, and the gas and diesel tanks were there before I came, and had been there long enough, so the first system that was there had already failed.
Right, yes.
We had to replace it.
And that's why we wound up with using other filling stations, because the other systems were so
Failed.
old and had failed.
Right.
So that's why we have these
Yeah,
different spurs.
I mean,
of-
some communities use WEX cards for their,
Yep.
this is a more controlled environment in terms of the programming. You see what happened, no, you can't mess with it, I guess
Right.
is the best way to say. You see who and what, because there's only so many ways to get into it to do that, and we treat our gas and diesel because we use more than 60,000 gallons of diesel and, not as much gas, but some, that's a multi-hundred thousands of dollars worth of entity. So we're audited on inventory. When we bring it into inventory, we take it out of inventory as it's used, and the school reimburses us for their cost. And when it's reconciled at the end of every month, you know, what's in the tank needs to match what, after we've bought and sold, is still there. That, I don't know that we certainly wouldn't be able to serve the buses. They would have to do something different in terms of that if they had, if they did, you know, I don't know how it would have operated very efficiently if we didn't have the fuel system at the garage.
Okay.
And would we lose whatever bulk discount I mean, when you go to the stations, do you just buy at the cost?
That's how it was back then, yeah, for the cruisers anyway, yes, that's how we used to do that. But for what we buy it for as a municipality, for like bulk diesel and everything, for what we're actually purchasing it for, that very well could offset over a reasonable duration of years to help us with that. Like offset the cost of this system.
You mean, if we were to
Help us.
start going back to the service station? it
We
would-
have,
Right,
Accumulate
as
towards.
opposed to going back to a service station, if we're buying in bulk, this may help us save money to offset the cost of this. is
what we
I'm
would
saying.
get at a service station is the current price minus the taxes, because we're tax
Right.
exempt.
Yeah.
What we get now is a bid, not including the taxes, that's a set over the course of a year.
Okay,
And, we've been fortunate in the bids that we've gotten, that with the way there's been fluctuations in the pricing, that the other thing that this system does is it allows us to know our cost
Yep.
ahead of time. And if you wanna play the market with your, sort of, it could
yeah,
fluctuate significantly.
I just had to ask if that was.
No, some communities do that, you know, you use WEX cards and go with whatever the price is at the time.
I would be for fixing it now, and just so we don't end up in a problem.
Yep. So, so essentially, we're not changing anything, we're just
Replacing the system that's there,
with a company that is there.
that is in business.
A motion?
Yeah, make a motion to send it to council?
Second?
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Next item, facilities person.
I spoke to you briefly at the last council meeting about the idea of a person, facilities manager is the wrong title, because it's nobody sitting around pointing fingers at somebody else. It is, a lot of this is actual work. But we've discussed for a while now that our economic and community and economic development director is doing a lot of facilities things that take away from him doing community and economic development thing. I am not, he does a great job, but he's one person and he's putting in way more hours due to that. The second thing we're doing is we're taking 2 people regularly out of highway to do things that are not road related. And as a result, highway stuff gets behind because we have, especially in the summer when we do this, because summer is the time when highway can take vacations, because in the winter they can't, because we need them to be able to plow snow if we have any. So we've added on significant, the taking care of Oak Hill Cemetery is a huge, it's not one of the cemeteries that we mow once a month. It needs to be mowed every other week. And it's 22 man hours to do it. It needs to be contracted, but someone to chase that kind of a contract, somebody to fix the things that, setting the light timers on these things, making sure the flags are there, acting as a spare in the winter for highway because they have the ability to do that, which gives us somebody that you can count on that's part of it anyway. But also to take a good look at our facilities and make sure that we know what all of them need in a fairly comprehensive way. So it's a proposal that, in my mind, would redirect our community and economic development director's efforts to the things that are the most important for us that he does, which is assist business, write grants, those kind of things. Figuring out cracks in the tennis courts, and that being down on the waterfront, putting bricks in, those are not things that are, there's nothing wrong with them, but that's not his best value for us. And I'm concerned about burnout because he's everywhere, and I feel like if there was a position that had those specific responsibilities, such as the ones that outline that's here, that we could put people back where they're supposed to be, highway back in highway, and Rich in where he's supposed to be, and have a dedicated individual to do the other things that are being now done by 2 highway people and Rich.
Who does, I'm assuming there's no sort of preventative maintenance right now, since it's from other departments, just sort of responding to things rather than sort of a plan in place to prevent.
Well, it depends on what it is. Highway looks out for the town garage, and they tell us they need doors and they need, these kind of things fixed. And public safety has done a fairly good job, but there's a considerable amount of needs inside that building that haven't been addressed. I've talked to Sean about those. But this building, the recreation facilities, the playground, the waterfront walkway, all of those are things that we own. The trails, we own them. We need to make sure that we take care of them, and they were the product of the mill years, but you're going to lose them if we don't take care of them appropriately. The school has a facilities person because of the stuff they have to take care of, and I think that the town's assets need the same kind of attention on a regular basis that,
Who are you
If we-
envisioning this person's boss to be for the chain of command? Who's,
well, when Rich was talking about it, he said him, I'm not sure that would separate him enough from,
Mm.
if this person was with
I think it would
highway,
be, because of the nature of the number of facilities and buildings, I would have it as a report to the manager.
you wouldn't want it to
I-
report to
I-
highway if they're working for them part-time in the wintertime?
Well, certainly the time that they're doing
Mm.
winter maintenance would be that, but the remainder of the responsibilities are largely outside of highway. Well, it would be coordination of trail stuff, getting that done. It could report to whoever the council thinks they should report to, but I guess that the point is that we need to, I believe we need to think seriously about a person whose job is the
Right.
facilities.
Is
Yes.
facilities, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just have a question, and hasn't been brought to council yet, but the Resilience Committee has been working on some plans which will be mentioned tonight, and it strikes me that a facilities position, do you think it would have the bandwidth if we were sort of leaning to like a weather emergency shelter, working with Director Gagan and others? He was talking about weather events and where people can go. Would this be something that you think a facilities manager could be sort of be under his or her tasks? Not the grant itself, but if we were to have to activate like the school at this point, if there was a weather event, could the facilities manager could that be part of their job description to sort of help with that type of thing, throwing cuts in the building, coordinating that facility if it became a temporary?
If it's a facility that the town owns or is responsible for, yes.
Yeah,
I
okay.
mean, that would be the point of having someone who's dedicated. Right now, the way that would work is if somebody needed to do that, between Sean and Jay and Mike and David, it would be all hands on deck to try and
Yeah,
do, depending on what that was. But if it was somebody's job to organize it, then it wouldn't require the
yeah.
actions of 4 other people.
Yeah, I mean like the facilities piece of it, not
Yeah.
like project coordinator or anything like that, but
Right,
just
right.
the bricks
Yep.
and mortar piece of that work.
And you envision this, since we hired the assessor part-time, the effects on the budget, I guess. What are you envisioning there?
I haven't got to this part yet, but I told you we hired a new assessor, who starts the 21st. He will be in the office 7:30 to 5:30, Monday and Tuesday, and from 7:30 to noon on Thursday. The position will be part-time. It's not a contract position, it's an employee position, but a part-time one, which doesn't come with benefits. A former assessor didn't have healthcare coverage, but had retirement income protection, life insurance, the 19 other things that we do. And this, the change in the position from full-time to part-time saves $20,000 in wages and an additional $5,000 in benefits. So it's about a $25,000 reduction to go to lose that 1.5 days. But Caitlin was working remotely part of the time. This standardizes in office time, and without adding extra duties to it, I think will serve the community's needs for assessing. Just a second. And then there's money in highway for spares. you know, in the winter, not as much as we used to budget, but some. Because and my view was that if you were to think about this, that, you know, we start it either in January or the end of the first quarter, something, there would be sufficient money in the budget to cover it for that, and then it would need to be budgeted for the next year, but, in some ways it can pay for itself if we get things before they're broken.
Yeah, that's what I was kinda getting at, cause Rich is sort of reactive, right? To be
Yeah,
proactive
Right,
could save us.
right, he gets calls that something's messed up on the waterfront, and he's out the door.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah. Take
We have
two.
to- You do need to,
Got a can.
because we have to talk into the microphone, we have to.
First off, do you have a job application that I could fill out before, oh, never mind. One of the things, we collaborate so well with the school system over here. Is it possible that, you know, they have the traditional facilities people? So could we like buy a block of their time? For example, a person is usually 2,080 hours a man-year of work. Could we buy, say, 500 hours, a block of time that we need something done, we put in a request, they take care of it, they back bill us, or we already got that block of time, or you come along and you send in a request, and whatever the number of hours is, they back charge town of Bucksport for the work that they've done over there. Oh, I thought you were gonna say something profound.
Sorry, I choked on something, sorry. No,
Good.
I apologize for interrupting you.
No,
That
I'm
was
just,
not
Paul,
meant to be,
I'm just busting you. So, but the point being, could we, and I don't know how things work for the facilities group over there in the summertime. I'm sure they've got things they have to do over the summer, but are they in a reduced workload that we could scoop one of their people for that 500 hours?
It's increased in the
It just,
summer.
that they keep going, you know, it's a win-win for, I'm
I'm not gonna speak for the RSU, but I think they are so overwhelmed with their facilities, summertime is worse.
I can tell you that Anthony, their facilities director, will be out at
Well-
4 in the morning, and I
Well,
will see
well,
him
maybe
go
we
home at
need
10:30, 11
maybe we
at
need
night.
another man, and we split the difference with them and end up with a new person and split the cost. I'm out of ideas. Thank you for listening.
What is the ballpark pay here? What are we looking at?
I don't know that I have identified a final, I need to find out if you would be willing to
I have
consider
a
this.
few concerns. One, whoever was hired, we wouldn't want somebody that's gonna contract out everything, because there's a lot.
No. A lot of things would be done by this individual.
So you need somebody who has the knowledge
Brings
to
the
do
skills
these
to the
things.
table, yeah.
But
No,
this is
the
also-
Oak Hill Cemetery is the only thing that
We try to contract that out, because that's a bear.
that is a beast in terms of, and there's money in the Oak Hill Cemetery account to pay for that to be done, but it is because it's this, it's a two-person job, and it's very difficult. That would be, that one I would argue we need to contract. Let the cemetery trust pay for the,
Well, there's several things here that are gonna have to be contracted, but there's a lot of hands-on.
Yes.
But this is also very large workload for somebody who's gonna do it efficiently. I don't see, even in the winter, they won't be as busy, but I don't see them with Public Works all winter long.
the truth is that Public Works very rarely requires a spare. You know, which is why we've reduced that budget. They have organized their schedules so that they've used They haven't added a number of people every winter the way they used to. Well, we're not getting the same winters we used to, but
Right.
they haven't done that. So no, it isn't anticipated that every night they're gonna work Public Works. That wasn't it. But if there was a storm or somewhere thing where we needed somebody on a sidewalk plow and somebody was out, we didn't have something that they would have the ability to do that. But yes, it is it absolutely is, which is why having Rich and Kevin and Jerry sort of splitting it all up while they have other responsibilities isn't working very well for anyone.
The position that's advertised for the highway department right now,
Yeah.
I understand that slot is like a replacement for a driver with a truck. I understand that, but is it possible to tweak that hiring position to be directed into this job description and have them answer to Jay? Is that a possibility?
All that does is reduce Public Works from 6 to 5. And since you have to have, in Public Works, 2 people to go out to any job, you've just made one person redundant. And the part of the purpose of this proposal is to restore staffing, because right now, from May to October, we've been running with 4, pretty much, in Public Works, other than taking the trash to Juniper Ridge, because the remainder of the time, with the reduction in things that Ron's been able to do, that a lot of the mowing and trimming and all that stuff has fallen to them too.
And is Ron, he probably won't be at it next year?
I don't, he's not supposed to be doing more than watering things,
Okay.
but it's almost impossible to control that. He's been with the town a long time, he does a good job, he takes great pride in his work, and so he's still,
Yes.
Go ahead, Paul.
When I look at a lot of these places, and I don't see it as a public works thing, and I look at it as more of an answer to the manager type thing, is when I look at number 1, schedule and manage seasonal staff. That's not all right, I manage them and I answer to another department head that answers to the manager. I'm managing staff. I'm managing our resources.
Yeah.
Same thing, the town office building. That's where the manager is. That's where our staff is and stuff. In the facilities that are all of these facilities, the town manager is responsible for, essentially. So that's who I see I would see this person answering to, and they manage staff.
I was just seeing this person needing equipment and trucks that highway has and the pooling of those.
100%. They're gonna have all of the staff work hand in hand. I'm not saying that at all, but when I would look at, all right, when you asked, hey, who this person would answer to, I would think the town manager, or at a minimum, the assistant town manager.
Right.
Okay, or even if you went down one. I see that happen a lot in Brewer, because they have the 2.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of things, winter-wise, that you're not gonna work on, the trails, Oak Hill Cemetery, things like that. And I would assume you're not gonna work on them in the winter. It'd be great to walk on them in the winter, but maybe for some, but, I think this is a great idea. I mean, you got 3 people that you're trying to pull to work on them now. Rich, he's been working ever since I got on the ever since he's been working here, he's been working 2 jobs, maybe 3 or 4, 5. He lives here, and he's gonna burn out. Well, if he hasn't already, but and you have to. This position here is long overdue, my opinion.
I'd agree with you, Paul.
Me too.
I was just looking for the financial end to merge the
Oh,
overhead,
the only,
you know,
I,
merging the overhead.
from a
is gonna be-
business, the only, and it, I know we're not a business, we're not here to make money, but the only way to make money or grow and is to spend money, and we're growing. And every once in a while, we have to spend it. This is a great way to spend it, because it takes care of our people.
It takes care of the stuff we have.
And the stuff, and the stuff we have, I mean, all of these things on here are great assets.
No, I'm not opposed to it at all. I think it would benefit the whole town. I just have those concerns
Well,
of, you gotta,
If you're
This
willing
isn't
to
gonna
think
be an
about this,
easy
I'll bring
find.
you a budget of what it would look like and
A
how
low
that
one.
might work.
Low one.
Now we're talking.
you're gonna have to, it's gonna have to be good pay, cause you're
It has to
asking
be
for
good.
somebody that's
Skills.
Has some,
skills, intelligence,
Work
Yeah.
independently.
Coordinating.
Responsibility,
responsibility.
I'm looking for somebody that
sober.
will
Sure.
be responsible.
Yeah.
And that can pass a background check to get in the public safety building to do maintenance.
Absolutely.
That's a plus too. Yep.
Well, there's a lot of things, you know, if I want someone that can, in a pinch, help highway, they needed a
They might
class
have to have
2
it.
license.
Yeah, they might have to have a B. Yeah,
So
at least a B, right?
but I will, if you're
I would say
you're
we're
willing to consider, I'll bring you a budget of what it would look like and, a more detailed explanation of why I think that, what I'm really trying to do is think through having the town be set up to move forward smoothly, and while we've done things over the past 10 years to accommodate many things, we've added no people to staff other than public safety.
I also think that, like what Tracy said, I think Tracy said at the beginning is, if something breaks, we're gonna be paying a lot of money anyway. We're gonna be paying an outside company to come in and do it. And so this is helping prevent some of that. Cause I mean, a lot of it, they've done a great job, but it is fairly like some things are stagnant when it comes to facilities. And if we can have that constant maintenance going,
Yeah.
instead of, something washes out, then all the guys have to go down and fix it.
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
I would agree.
All hands on deck.
They wouldn't need any special license if they were just in a pickup with a plow, right?
What do we have for pickups right now that could be designated to that position? Is there anything that we have that you could say this can be used for that we wouldn't have to spend the money on?
That most beat up truck.
Yeah.
There's a waterfront one now, isn't
Yeah.
there?
We have, between departments, we have, trying to think. We have three pickup trucks that we use, including the one that I drive. We have two, we acquired a truck back from the wastewater that we put a new body on.
Okay.
So that potentially could be a vehicle that could be used for lots of things. So we have a vehicle that could be, this person could use.
Okay.
I mean, with a plow for winter.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
we
we
wouldn't
have
have-
plows for every vehicle now. We've finally gotten to the point, everything we have can be used all the time, not just for a taxi.
We used to have like 3 or 4 two-wheel drives.
Two-wheel drive pickups, it's like, honestly.
We're in Maine.
Yeah, oh yeah. So they were just taxis, but now, since over the last, how long have I been doing this? Like 8 years?
Yeah. Everything's usable now.
The big goal was get to the point where everything was usable for something, not just to ride around in. And we're there, so.
So we in agreement just to have Sue take it further and we'll go from there?
Please.
Yeah.
You could bring it back to another committee
I
with
was about to say, you've got a new puddle of money too. I mean, a year ago, you only had 8 ships that came in. This year, you've got close to 30 at $3 a foot. God knows all the bags of rubbish that are coming off those ships that they seem to save until they get here. That's a puddle of money that at least part of it could go towards
That's a
you
good
know,
point.
coming up with
Yep.
that. It's a big difference from one year to the next.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just the elevated weather events as well that Rich is at, it would be nice to have somebody dedicated to that piece.
But I think we gotta see qualifications, what exactly their skill, you know, what their job's gonna be. Cause if they're gonna work nights in the winter, that's gonna deter, we're gonna lose a lot right there. And I think we will. And pay, cause you're asking a lot of them. And none of us wanna pay them a lot, but gonna have to.
We would like you to wave the same wand for this position that you did for the tax assessor situation. That's what we would like you to do.
Get one
Well,
with
yeah, but this
multiple
one's gonna
skill
be
sets.
full-time.
Yeah. This is a good conversation though, because I think Steve and Ed bring up a good point, in terms of who it's gonna take to fill the position, and I think we do wanna be prudent in how we look at it, but, and paying for it, I mean, but I think overall, what I'm hearing philosophically anyway, is that it's a good conversation to move forward, and I think you just, Tracy, talking about the waterfront, as we move forward on the waterfront in terms of what we do, this is somebody who could be very valuable in that
Yeah.
process too, in terms of, we know what the engineering is gonna come back in terms of changes that are gonna need to be made as we improve that, so this is somebody who could drive that forward
Yeah.
too, and again, the whole proactivity piece, you know, I said enough about it last meeting, I won't go on about it, except to say, if Rich is no longer here for whatever reason, you know, you literally have two people to replace for the
Right.
work that he's doing now, and so we can't be behind on that.
And the other thing to think about, if we're trying to hire a town manager without a facilities maintenance person, I wouldn't take the job or want the job.
That's coming from your past experience?
Yes. Running a town with no dedicated facilities manager would scare me away.
Uh-huh. All right, so, sorry. go ahead.
So if a budget and some qualification lists you can look at and add, subtract, whatever to, does that sound? And a potential timeline based on monies available in this year's budget from other changes that we're making?
Yep.
Does that
Yep.
sound?
Sounds good.
Yep.
Sue, you have this position on here as, Monday through Thursday, or is that?
That's our office, our structure.
Yep.
It may fluctuate depending on what they were doing, but it's envisioned as a 40-hour-a-week position.
Hourly or,
That's
Salary.
where I'm going.
Hourly is the way I had,
Can we look at both?
you can look at, I can do
Yes.
both.
Okay.
Because
Yeah, I'd
I
like to
think
see
there's some
both.
flexibility where if you needed to call someone at 11 at night,
Yep.
They better answer the
they
phone.
better answer the phone. Exactly.
No, it's generally when I call, no matter what time they answer the phone.
Well,
Um,
I've thought perhaps before, because I didn't have a maintenance guy at 2 AM, so I've been there.
Well, if they're gonna be coordinating staffing at events too, that's weekends.
I'll show an hourly and a salary,
Okay, sounds good.
okay?
Item 4, texting proposal for messages to residents.
Okay, the town has been working on a number of items, but one is our emergency operations plan. And we've had some conversations during some of those meetings with people who've said, does the town have a way to notify people of things? And the answer is, we use Facebook, we use the website, we use the enterprise, but what we don't have is a system like the school has, which is, you know, you don't have school tomorrow. Poof, everybody knows. And even though everyone doesn't have a cell phone, somebody who lives next door does. If we had an emergency situation where we we could get the majority of people in the community, and those that we didn't get have a neighbor that is next door. It's our best option to be able to do that. But the other thing it would allow us to do is to use it, if we've got a hot topic or a big issue or a meeting coming up, something that, I'm not saying we put every council meeting out as a text message, that people know when those are, we post those routinely, but something different, you know. How many times have any of you heard, I didn't know that? I don't know. You
Well, especially coming up with this VPI, there could be some benefits to having this in
Yeah.
place and
And this,
established.
this system that is here in your packet has more, you can use, that has the text function, but it also has the ability to have it set up that people can text the town
Mhm.
to tell them about a pothole, to tell them about,
How,
And that would go not to Rich,
I was gonna say, is Rich gonna get that? This is why we needed the facilities person, because Rich is gonna be
well,
busy
it,
answering text
it's
messages.
possible under this program to have them go to whatever department, you know, if it was a pothole, it would be set up to go to Public
okay.
Works. If it was
There
a
you go.
criminal complaint, it would go, you know, something where
Yes.
somebody would
That's
go.
a good-
But
that's
I-
not
so is
I-
that, how does it work? Is that automated? Like, somebody just texts, and where does it, like,
It goes
Physically
and there are
going.
things set up that give you a number to call or that just go and someone will call and respond to you
Got it.
afterwards.
Yep.
That stuff and the text, the ability to message are all part of the same price. There's no difference in price. When I talked to them, I didn't have much interest in, at first, setting up text us if you find a pothole stuff. I was more interested from the emergency notifications and notifications of things that it's important that your community knows, you know,
like, close your
X is
window, there's a
closed, this-
fire in Arlington?
That's right, there's a fire in Orrington, close your windows, you know, things that we right now don't have a way to do on that. And it is, it fulfills one of the missing pieces in our emergency operations planning that
And
would
this
give
is,
it.
they could sign up for it at will.
Well, there's ways that this company has access to a database with phone numbers in you can automatically be enrolled.
Yeah.
So is that, so, like at school, we have School Messenger, which is attached to Power School, which is attached to all of the groups within the school. I can send a text message, an email, a voicemail, if I wanted to send that. Is it gonna be directly connected into our system, or is it an outside?
It's an outside,
Okay.
it's not, well, I shouldn't say that. It gets the system gets populated here, and
Yep.
it operates from here, it doesn't
Yep.
operate from somewhere else, but they can populate it, or we can have it as a people who wanna get it can do it.
Mhm.
That's less effective.
Yep.
It's less effective if we don't use their database to get as many phone numbers in this area as we can into the system, because there's a feature where people can opt out.
Yep.
If you don't,
Oh, yeah.
if you don't wanna do it, we tried. That's the best I could, you know, that, but the initial cost, I think it is, the setup cost is why it's 2,000 more in the first year, and then it's not an exorbitant cost, and while they had 50,000 text messages, they have upped that to 75,000 for the same price. And the reason is because every time you send out a text, the number of texts you sent depends on how many people you sent it to. So if in a town of 5,000 people, we have 3,000 adults with cell phones, then every message is $3,000 units. And you can buy more ability, but since I'm not thinking we're gonna use this like have a nice day messages, this is, you know, something important, a significant meeting, public information, an emergency warning, like we were trying to get out when the people were saying, what's burning, and, you know, that
Right.
it
Does-
was hard to.
Does the messages we receive count towards that, or only the ones we
Only
send?
if you set it up to do the number of people who would take the time to send us a text, I don't think would be significant, or people would decide to bombard us with stuff that's not.
There'll be that one person.
Well, the fact of the matter is that in looking at doing it, I would recommend if you do it, that what we set up to start with is just the text side of it, that our ability to put it out there, and then review it in a few months and see, and then if we want to go the next step and have this.
Yeah.
We had
The,
no-
Is this a-
Yeah, I just have, and not to harp back on this resilience committee, but, we're also, if this does end up on council table, Rich and I and the committee are going to explore whether this grant could cover future subscriptions. We don't know, so it's not a guarantee, but there's a possibility, because it's part of an emergency response plan, that we could try and slide it into this application. We don't have an answer yet, but we're gonna try and see if it lined up with setup. It's possible we could ask for the setup cost too, but we're not so sure the timing will line up there. But we're going to consider trying to throw that into the grant that he's going to submit in December. That's all tentative though, so it's not a guarantee, but it's just an avenue we're looking at to sort of offset the yearly subscription of this service.
Go ahead, Dan.
Are there any, did we look at any other services outside of the Text My Gov proposal?
Have not.
So I'm wondering if, because this is a fairly common thing, so I'm wondering if
Jim researched through the one the school uses to
Yep.
compare
okay,
cost structures. This one's a little less,
Yep.
actually, than what the school pays to be able to do its notifications. And this is a government-only one.
Yep.
So it's secure, because my concern also was the security of our IT system. If we install this, that we don't have something sending out messages from the town of Bucksport that is not us, that got hacked. And since this company only does governmental stuff, their security systems and their clearance, so to speak, is at that level
Yep.
for those. So that is, it's not one that if you just have a
It's not
company,
willy-nilly.
you can't just have a business and the ability to do this, because it has to be a government.
Go ahead,
So
Paul.
just order of
Paul, can you come up
magnitude.
here?
Yeah. Come up.
Sorry.
Sorry, I get a lot of feedback.
Just order of
Soon it'll be
magnitude.
by text.
What's the entry level kind of thing? Is this 10,000 or 100,000?
No, it's
No.
out
No,
here.
no. It's-
6,700 the first year.
Excuse me?
6,700 the first year.
That's cheap money.
And then 4,500 a
6,700
year
is
thereafter.
includes a
And I'll tell you why.
2250.
I'm on the phone this morning with my sister-in-law down in Fort Myers, Florida. Yesterday, at one time, they had 100-plus tornadoes down there. At one time, they had 9 warnings at the same time.
Wow.
Their cell phones all lit up with text messages right down to the street level where the warning was. And one of them was their street. So, of
Yeah.
course, they go to the safe room in their house. They got lucky, the thing didn't touch down, but it was right over their house. Imagine having somebody with a cell phone around here,
Yeah.
wintertime, summertime, whatever, that's really cheap money to get this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, to get messages out from the community.
Yeah,
And it's only 4,500 a year after that.
yeah.
It's just a
cheap
third.
It's
money.
like $1 a person
Yeah.
in the town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
Motion to send it to council.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay.
Well, thank you all for your looking over all these things. This texting proposal, I think, is,
Great.
it answers a lot of things that we struggle with in terms of the emergency
Mhm.
side of things,
Yeah.
and even getting the word out on things that are significant, that people don't have a way to know unless it's,
Yeah.
if they don't get the
Somebody won a
enterprise.
football game, ignore the sirens.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
That's right.
Item 5?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Meeting adjourned.